Hi, it's Claire from Verity Papery here today, and I am joining with HeroArts for a launch party blog hop. HeroArts recently got their website renovated. It looks awesome, and they also released a bunch of awesome stamp sets. That's what I'm using on my card today, and in particular, I wanted to show you how I use their ombre ink pads. So the HeroArts ombre ink pads, they have 3 strips of ink pads basically in one ink container. And each one of those strips of padding, or sounds kind of weird, is a different shade of green or red, whichever, depending on whichever ombre ink pad you get. So to get a nice result, when I have my image, right here I'm using the color layering Wreath, and I stamp down really firmly, not so that I'm crushing the ink pad, but pretty close. You don't have to do this, but I just like to make sure that I have a lot of ink on it. I also kind of move the stamp around to make sure that I'm not going to get a stripe effect on my clear stamp. And so once I make sure that I have a lot of ink on my clear stamp, then I lightly tap it against the ink pad to make sure that I don't get any big blotches of ink. And so right here there are the 2 comparisons between when it's immediately stamped and when it's had time to dry. You'll see the one that I'm using right now is the one that's had time to dry, and it's really evened out. And when the ombre inks are first stamped, they will look kind of blotchy and maybe a little bit stripy. But once you give it time to dry, it will even out and it will look gorgeous. It looked exactly the same when I stamped this one. Until it had time to dry, it looked blotchy too. So don't be worried if your image looks kind of blotchy at first. It will even out and it'll be beautiful and you'll love it. So I have stamped the 2 deer from the Deck the Halls by Leah. This is one of my favorite stamp sets from the release. It's actually one of the smallest too. I just like it because it has a beautiful sentiment in it. It has beautiful images, and it's just a really versatile set. The sentiment is limited to Christmas, Deck the Halls, yeah. But the deer themselves, you could use them for spring, for fall. You can use them for any kind of occasion. They're just really classic. Anyway, my sentiment is from the Color Layering Christmas Tree stamp set, and I'm using the gold ink from the HeroHues Metallic Cube set. I'm using that because I'm going to do some gold embossing, and if the embossing powder doesn't stick to any part of the sentiment, at least I will have some gold behind it, so it will look really seamless. But before I ink up the stamp with the gold ink, I use Versamark ink first. I always do this whenever I'm going to be doing some kind of heat embossing with a colored ink instead of straight up Versamark, because the Versamark just makes it extra sticky. So I'm going to be positive that the embossing powder will be sticking to the sentiment. Right now I'm using the Dot Moire. Honestly, I have no idea how to say that. The Dot Moire bold prints background stamp. It's 6x6, so it is perfect for cards. I think you can do it diagonally and it works. It still works on an A2 size card. I'm using it on some HeroArts craft paper, and you'll see I have a little bow there. I kind of snuck that in on you. That was from a previous project. It's just the bow from the color layering Wreath stamp set. It's just embossed with the same gold embossing powder, gold ink, and then cut out. I actually did it on vellum, but it worked for the project. You could use white cardstock if you wanted to. I actually kind of like the vellum a little bit better here because if you used white cardstock, you might be able to see a little bit of the white edge when you cut the bow out, and with vellum you can't tell because it's translucent. So that's where I stuck that in there. It's just from a previous project. I didn't mean to spring anything on you. I just did it the same how I did with the sentiment. So now I am adhering my stamped kraft background onto another card base. I like my card bases to be made of really thick cardstock. That's just, some crafters like thinner cardstock. I usually like really thick cardstock, like 120 pound. The craft paper from HeroArts is not that thick, so I like to layer it on top of thicker cardstock. So I just use some white cardstock here. Anyway, so now that my panel is all stamped and lovely, I'm adhering it using a panel of foam, as recommended per Jennifer Moire. I got my foam from a giant pack from Amazon, and all the foam has adhesive already on one side, which is awesome. So I only have to add adhesive to the other side of it, and voila, you know. Okay, so now I'm adhering my little bow to the top of the wreath. I used glossy accents for the middle of the wreath, the very center, because I want that to be pinned down on the wreath, on the wreath. But for the rest of the bow, I put glue dots. Yeah, I put glue dots on it to give it a little bit of dimension and make sure that it looks a little more bowish. I don't know how else to put it, but it gives a little more dimension. And then I'm topping it off with a Sunshine Mixed Accents gem, and that makes the card. You can see the wreath really got smoothed out there, so, you know, give those ombre ink pads a try. They're pretty awesome. They might look kind of funky at first, but they'll even out, they'll smooth out, and you'll love them, and it'll be great. So that was part of the HeroArts blog hop, and if you are following in the blog hop, the next stop is Lucy Abrams, and I will link to her blog in the description box. But if you want the entire link up, you can go to my blog, which is also linked, or you can go to the HeroArts blog. And that finishes it up today, folks. Thanks for stopping in, and God bless.